Welcome to Whispers to a Bride, where we talk about the stuff no one else is talking about. We are going deep on the emotional aspects of getting married, the stress, drama, and turbulence that affects your own sense of identity and your closest relationships. We are talking about what it means to be a bride and how to navigate this sacred time with more grace and ease. I'm your host, Kara Gassabay. As a life coach and therapist, I'm going to be sharing super practical tips so that you can not only rise to the occasion of your wedding, but also your life.
Hello, and welcome back. This week we are doing a little Q&A. I am going to talk about a bachelorette party problem. So this question came right out of one of my bridal calls, the one-on-one calls that I do with brides where they come with like whatever's on their mind, whatever problems they've got going on, we solve them. It's the best. If you have not booked one, you probably should. So this question was a very, very sweet bride. And this was just one of the little small things we worked on in her session, but I thought I would just pull this one thing out so we could kind of go through it because it's really, really common and it'll just give you like a little sampling of how we tackled it. So she is having this really fun weekend away bachelorette party, and there's two different groups, right? There's her college crew of women who are all happen to be getting married around the same time as her. And they're all planning their trips together. And they're all on the same page and they're excited. And they're all in that same vibe of wanting to travel and have these really fun, extravagant weekends and doing it for each other and really into the whole thing. And my bride had not invited her sort of childhood friends. And then one of those friends from childhood came forward to express her displeasure about being excluded from the bachelorette party. And so my bride had decided to include them. This was like adding sort of 4 more girls. And I think she felt a little bit torn. She originally hadn't invited that other group simply because she just thought it'd be more complicated. It might not be something they were as interested in. She thought it would just be easier to do it with these other girls who were already kind of all on the same sort of travel circuit with the parties and knew each other. And she just thought it would be easier and fun. And they have a different maybe energy and interest level in this kind of trip. So she just thought it would be easy and fun to just stick with that group. But then she felt bad that she hadn't included this other group who she absolutely loves and cares about, but just is on a little bit of a different plane right now with, but she included them and now they're all going. Okay, so that's where we were. The question was, how do I not feel nervous and anxious about like how these two groups are going to get along, and are they going to like be awkward with each other, and how do I make sure there's no like weirdness, and how do I make sure they all have a great time? And how do I make sure they get along with each other? And how do I make sure nobody feels left out? And I'm like, it's so interesting with life coaching. Like so much of it is literally like being in the moment and responding to like, what is the person saying? And then what's the energy behind it? And there's a lot of different directions that we could go. And just based on what we had been talking about earlier in the session and just the vibe I had gotten from this particular bride, my advice was, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to try to plan for and pave the way and manipulate and control and prepare to try to get these women to be a certain way so that we can feel a certain way, right? I mean, you could definitely sit down and we could map out like, okay, we're going to call this one and tell her to worry about this one and watch out for this one. And we're going to beg this one not to bring up this. And we're going to tell this one like she needs to like have a better energy, and tell these ones to tone it down and not be as happy if this one seems sad. Like, right? You can see how you can try, but like there's an easier way. And the easier way, the path of least resistance, is to let people be who they're going to be and decide that you can be okay with it. So her sort of conundrum was, if there's ickiness or weirdness or awkwardness between these two groups, that maybe that was going to ruin her experience. And she really wanted to just have this carefree, fun, like high energy, like just live it up bachelorette weekend, right? They were flying there. There were hotels involved. Like everybody was putting forth a lot of time and money to really make this happen. And she just didn't want anything to go wrong. Totally understandable. Very much like a wedding, right? A lot goes into it. We really don't want anything to go wrong, which adds a lot of the stress to it. So, but what we talked about and what, comes up with other brides who have a similar concern on their wedding day, it's like there's only so much you can do. And then you have to sort of surrender to the fact that you can control your experience without controlling other people's behavior. So the number one thing to do is expect there to be weirdness, right? When you have two different groups of women, there's naturally going to be that little period of getting to know, hesitation, everybody feeling each other out. What's your deal? What do you like? Especially when you're in that sort of wedding situation where it's like, it already puts this funny layer of like rank ordering friendships with like the maid of honor and then the bridesmaids and then the people who aren't in the wedding but they're invited to the like that already sort of like exists in the background, and it brings out that like more territorial, like, am I closer friends? Are you closer friends? Or like I'm older friends, but like you're newer friend, but so there's a lot that goes on with that kind of proximity to the bride, feeling of importance thing. I think that people can get into like this weird competitive vibe with all of that. That's what gets, I think, really can get really icky about just bridesmaid world in general. But specifically for this trip, I just really talked to her about, let's just expect that, right? Let's expect there to be weirdness. Let's expect this one girl who has more of she's an old friend, but she had more of maybe a heavier energy that she was bringing to the situation. Let's not pretend she's not going to bring it. We can say to her, like, I am so excited that you want to come and enjoy this weekend. Here's what it's going to be like. I hope you're up for that. And I can't wait for you to have a great time because I know I'm going to, right? Like you can plant seeds and you can put out like what your expectations are and what you want and what you're hoping for and what your vision is for the weekend. And then you have to sort of step back and let people be who they're going to be. And if you expect there to be some of those little, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. These girls always sit with each other. And you know what? That's fine. Let everybody be comfortable. Let them do what they're going to do. You don't have to create this idea that like success and fun is predicated on everybody like perfectly mixing and mingling and acting like everything is kumbaya and easy and everybody's friends forever and all that. Like it doesn't have to be that way. But if you set up the expectation that that's what success looks like, you're going to end up disappointing yourself. So if you just expect there to be a little bit of like weirdness, some people will be more excited than others. Some people have more fun than others. Some people look more excited. Some people let everybody be and do what they're going to do. But you decide ahead of time that you're going to be okay with it. And when you've already expected it and then you see it coming, it's not going to like hit you like a freight train. When we give ourselves this false expectation that people are going to behave a certain way and then they don't, we're like shocked and angry and disappointed, right? So, but when you just take the shock out of it, then you can just be like, oh, bummer, but I saw it coming. And you can sort of make it a little more of a game for yourself to be like, oh, this is the part that I knew was going to happen, right? Like this is the part where so-and-so goes to bed early or this one doesn't want to come. But if you already expect it, it's just so different. You can really sort of mentally prepare for it. And then when it happens, you'll have a solution and a pivot ready to go. And so that's really what we talked about was just let's expect what is likely the most probable scenario so that then it can be that or something better, right? That's probably how it's going to go if she just gets really, really honest with herself. There are two different groups. They do have different energies and expectations and relationship to this kind of trip. And so they're probably going to be and experience a little differently. And that can be okay. And you can choose to have the experience that you want to have and let these women take care of their thoughts and feelings about it. That's the other thing, is that you, at some point, instead of trying to like get in there and manhandle people and what they want to do and how they want to feel, if you step back and you sort of surrender to the experience, surrender to the fact that people will be people and do what they're going to do. When you step back a little bit and just be like, you know what, I'm going to be in charge of me. I'm going to manage my feelings. I'm going to manage my thoughts, and I'm going to have the best time no matter what. That is so different because it gives people permission and the ability to rise to the occasion. You have to sort of get out of the way, give space for people to rise. And I think sometimes it's hard when we feel like we know all the players on the chessboard
we want to like make all the moves. But sometimes if you just take your hands off the board and let things fall into place, it will blow your mind. People will rise to the occasion, I have found, in ways that you just don't expect, but they can't if you're still right in there trying to manipulate and control and make things go a certain way. So that was my advice, really, to expect people to be who they are, right? Let's not change them in our minds and create some false, weird fantasy land. Expect them to be who they are. Take complete responsibility for your own experience. Despite whatever is happening around you, you have the ability to have fun in every scenario. And there were plenty of elements of fun already baked into this whole plan, so I was not too worried about that. But this bride had a tendency to let her good time be usurped by other people's feelings and needs. Little bit of this people pleaser aspect that I'm super familiar with. That's why I could spot it immediately. It's like she feels like until she takes care of everyone else's emotions and problems and logistics, she can't relax and have a good time. So we really sort of worked on like what were the ways in which she could start to let people take care of themselves so that she could take care of herself. And in doing that, right, it lets people rise to the occasion, not only to have their own good time, but to show up in a really fun, like celebratory energy for her as well. I feel like this thing happens with women and with weddings and with women in weddings and the whole thing where like all eyes on the bride. So if the bride's not happy, other people feel like they can't be too, like you're not allowed to be happier than the bride, right? Like that whole idea, like you can't be dressed better than the bride. Like people, I think a lot of people feel like they can't be happier than the bride. So if the bride doesn't seem happy, then other people kind of are more subdued. But then when other people are more subdued, then the bride is more stressed because she feels like her guests aren't happy. So do you see how that sort of, it just feeds on itself? And that's why I really, really encourage my brides to work on their own energy management, emotional management, thought management. Like, how do I want to be? How do I want to present? How do I want to experience myself in my body in this moment? And the more you stay sort of contained and focused on that, then other people don't have to worry about you, which then lets them tend to themselves. And then everybody shows up better. So it's a little bit of like, let's all just like stay in our lane and then show up and have a great time. So anyway, the like, what do I do to not be worried? Basically, the answer was like, stop it. Stop worrying because it's not going to help you. And there are other things besides worrying and stressing about like scenarios you don't want to happen. We're just going to count on them happening. And then instead shift the focus to like, who are you going to be in that moment? Are you going to make it a problem if the high school girls kind of stay together on the beach over here? Are you going to stress about that and make it mean that something's gone wrong? Are you going to be like, oh, that's natural? And also, if they're more comfortable and they're fine and I'm fine and everyone else fine, let's be fine. So that was really changing sort of the mental picture of like, what does fun look like? What does success look like? And how can you respond? And what do you make things mean? If something's happening, what are you internally making it mean? Right? So then once we can stop you from spiraling, it'll help other people not spiral and get all weird. Because then the thing that also happens with women is like in our like protectiveness, that mama bear part that comes out. Like if somebody's upset the bride, then one of those girls is going to like go for her. That's when it really devolves because like there's people who are like fighting for you and then, but it's causing even more conflict, which is then making you more stressed, but they think that they're helping. Like, especially when you're adding some champagne to this whole thing, it can get off the rails really quickly. So anyway, I hope this helps give you just a little bit of a glimpse into how we can approach this kind of feeling of impending doom around a bachelorette party that you so want to be awesome. And it has absolute potential. I know it's going to go super well because she's got this awareness. She's got this ability to like see what she's doing in a situation, what the other players are doing in the situation, and how to let everybody rise to the occasion. Because I think in the end, most people will. And if they don't, we'll take that and figure it out, that next step out, right? Because there might need to be some next steps with certain people, and that's okay too. But we'll handle that when we come to it. The issue here was like how to enjoy this weekend. And she can do that when she focuses on her own, tending to her own emotional and energetic state,
and letting other people rise to the occasion and having really realistic expectations. So I hope that helps. If you have a problem, question, issue, anything, reach out to me. I am here. Get the book. It's on Amazon. I'm so excited for those of you who have already bought it. Thank you if you left a review on this podcast, on Amazon about the book. All of that stuff helps so much. It's a new year. New people have gotten engaged, so we got to help them find this podcast. We're in it together. Till next time, I'm wishing you nothing but bridal bliss.